Hi, I'm Stuart. I'm a psychotherapist who specialises in working with people who have experienced trauma, and today I'm going to explain event centrality at 3 levels of increasing complexity. Level 1 to a child of maybe 12 or 13 years of age, level 2 to an adult who isn't a therapist, and level 3 to another therapist. Think of your most favourite movie you've ever seen, and from that movie, think about who the main character is. And what you normally find is that the story revolves around that main character. And as you watch it, all of your focus and all of your attention is on them and what happens to them. Now, when something big happens in your own life, it can become a bit like that main character. You put all of your attention onto that big thing that happened to you, like you put all of your attention on the main character in the movie. And when you are watching that movie, you might be so into it that you don't notice what else is going on around you. And afterwards, you might remember the coolest part of the movie long after you've seen it, maybe even days or weeks after. Well, the same thing happens when these big events happen to us. That big event becomes a big part of the story of your life. It becomes the biggest scene of your life. If your life was a movie, then the big thing you went through is the biggest, most remembered scene in that movie. And you might even keep thinking about that scene when you're doing other things. It might keep coming into your mind. You might even find yourself thinking about it when you don't really want to think about it. And when you do think about it, it brings up massive emotions for you. And if this happens, there are things that can help, like talking to your friends, talking to an adult, like a parent or a carer or a teacher. There are people who can help you with this, so please let someone know. I'm going to explain a concept called event centrality, and I'm going to use the metaphor of a jigsaw puzzle. Imagine your life is a big jigsaw puzzle, and every event and experience that happens to you is one of those pieces. Most of those pieces fit together to create the picture of your life, but not all of the pieces are the same size or the same importance. Event centrality is like asking, how big is this piece of the puzzle? How much does it change the overall picture? When an event is high in centrality, it means that it plays a big, crucial role in your life story. It's a big piece of the jigsaw puzzle, and it has a high impact on how that picture looks overall. And there are a few ways that this might show up for you in your life. A high centrality event might change how you see yourself. It can impact your self-view and your self-identity. These significant events might come up in your thoughts or memories, whether you want them to or not. And when they do show up, you feel strong emotions when you remember them. It can influence your choices and actions that you make because they are based on that traumatic experience and trying to keep yourself safe. It can impact your relationships. It might strengthen bonds with people who have shared the experience with you, or they might change how you relate to others who weren't part of that experience. So event centrality is about understanding how much one or a few particular events stand out in the picture of your life. If the event is central, it means it plays a big role in shaping who you are, how you think, and how you live your life. And if you find that it is having a detrimental effect on your life, then there are therapies, there are interventions that can help you. Event centrality is the extent to which a person perceives an event as central to their identity. A lot of people are exposed to traumatic experiences throughout their lives, and with that brings a wide range of reactions. And what we are thinking about here is how these traumatic events become central in how a person organises their identity, their self-concept, and how they view the world. What we know is that when we experience anything, we extract meaning from that experience and how it relates to us so we can make sense from it and learn from it for the future. So it's adaptive. So if a stressful traumatic event has been experienced and is accessible to memory in some form, that event might start to take a central position in that person's identity. So instead of your identity being more based on positive life events, they get moved aside for traumatic events to become central. And that experience then becomes a reference point of interpretations for new events. What that means is it's likely that there will be more overestimation of the frequency of such events occurring again and having to experience them again in the future. And because you don't want that to happen, that can lead to avoidance of situations or events that may lead to the risk of a further traumatic experience. And that's really interesting because we often think of trauma memories as being poorly integrated and fragmented. However, some researchers hypothesize that it isn't so much that the memory is poorly integrated, but actually the opposite. There is an over-integration into someone's life. And just to muddy this perspective even more, if we look at something like the Adaptive Information Processing model, so also known as the AIP, which is the model that EMDR is based on, then that would say that the memory hasn't been integrated into the rest of the network to allow all previous memories and experiences to be taken into consideration when making sense of that trauma. So although we might not understand the exact mechanisms of what is happening, we can still see the impact it has on a person. And there are tools out there to measure this, with one of them being the Centrality of Event Scale, known as the CES. And that scale is a self-reported questionnaire for the person to complete. And it has questions like, I feel that this event has become part of my identity. And this event has become a reference point for the way I understand myself and the world. And this event has coloured the way I think and feel about other experiences. So a high score on the CES tells us that the person has construed the traumatic event as central to their life story. Because that becomes part of their narrative, it keeps the memory of what happened highly available to them, which then further reinforces that narrative. And as that narrative is reinforced, it maintains and strengthens the memory of the event and its emotional impact over time. So you can see how this cycle just keeps going, just keeps reinforcing itself. What we know from the literature about this is that CES scores are a significant predictor of post-traumatic stress disorder. The good news is that there is research, and I'll put a link to it in the description below, that shows that acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, can affect event centrality. There's probably other interventions out there. I'm just mentioning ACT as this is a CBT and ACT channel predominantly. I'm not trying to take anything away from those other modalities. And one of the core processes of ACT is called self as context, which is the taking the perspective of an observer in viewing one's own thoughts and feelings. And developing that skill over time can allow the person to no longer allow the experience to be a defining characteristic of themselves. This decentralizes the traumatic experience from identity. And obviously there's loads of other concepts that are tied in with event centrality, such as how memory works, and I will discuss them in a further video. I just want to keep this one focused on event centrality. And there's this whole other side of event centrality that looks at how it can influence post-traumatic growth. And again, I think post-traumatic growth after a traumatic experience is worth its own video because that's a big topic. If you like this video, if you like the differences in trying to explain things to different levels, then let me know in the comments below. Subscribe for more, and I hope to see you in the next video. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.